come down to the wire. Not a lot of groups have been this open when it came down to the final match. It's super exciting, and with a chance to advance with a 2-0 in the top right side, our blue Protoss player from Ting is Neeb.
And the bottom left-hand side for Africa Freaks, he also wants to win, as that is gonna dictate his own destiny. It is Stats.
We're gonna pause it up, cats, just because the excitement is overwhelming. We just need a moment or two longer before we can truly get this underway. Stats just with a hotkey problem apparently, so a moment or two shouldn't be something too difficult to fix. We started up on Oxide, and there's already actually a low ground pylon from both players, so it's very possible we kind of get one of those accelerated early games where we get Nexus up early on either side, and we just really go towards that macro PvP.
Yeah, unless I'm mistaken, Neeb opened the tournament with a Nexus first on the low ground. So if Stats is a little bit shy and he goes for something like a gate into Nexus, then that's the dream for Nexus first openers. We'll have to wait and see if either or both players are going to try to deny this expansions on the low ground by sending a probe early on, because it is kind of expected on a map like this, given that there's a ramp. It is much more difficult to attack in PvP, and so we see Stats is ready to block that Nexus from Neeb.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely want to try and block that Nexus, especially if you do it and your opponent doesn't, right? It's a big lead you can get away with, right? So, expecting that to come down. Both players with the probes entering the naturals and so on, and yeah, you just pylon block, then you cybercore block, and it's funny because it kind of leads you still into a decent position on either side. There's a reason that people still try and fast expand, even though it gets blocked all the time. You can still get off to a good start, even with the slowdown, and even more so when you're doing the exact same thing to your opponent.
Yeah, a really cool thing to note is that Stats, I think his timing was made to block the Nexus first from Neeb, which would have been just deadly, right? Because if you're banking up that much money for a Nexus first and you're unable to drop it, then you're really reset and really set back. But as it stands, I mean, both players went for the gateway openers, and that means that Stats just wasted a little bit more time than Neeb wasted with his probe, because he did go out a little bit earlier. Also to note is that Neeb has not made that pylon that you were mentioning on the low ground to block Stats' natural. I'm not sure what that's about.
Yeah, it is a little bit intriguing, right? I mean, the probe's still down here, so there's still an opportunity to do it. Problems if you start the pylon now, you get the cybercore blader, so you've got to keep the probe alive for longer. Stats is going to drop down a Stargate, so it looks like he's just content with this being, tech first. Now he doesn't want to kind of put his own money into delaying this any further.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, the Zealot is out, so the pylon really would start getting worked at right away, and it probably wouldn't even go up in a good position. So I kind of, all in all, Neeb gets ahead in this manner, right? Because he didn't delay his expansion any more than Stats did. In fact, he's still the player that's dropping his expansion first, in spite of having that pylon that map was showing us taken down. So the pylon didn't really accomplish anything for Stats.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
And he forced a Zealot too, right? Like, I'm not sure what the Zealot was for on the side of Stats. Perhaps just...
Yeah, I mean, you just have to build it, right? Just in case. Just because if it does become a block, you need that Zealot to start taking it down. There's nothing to stop the probe suddenly putting a pylon down, right? As Depp gets in from Stats, he's going to get himself at least one probe. I'm going to say at least two. And that's obviously pretty nice. So Depp gets a couple of kills. And in games like this, I mean, considering Stats is also going into that Oracle now, if he can get a few more kills with that Oracle, he can start to run away with the economy in this game. That could be a good way for him to take this. Neeb just going for the faster Twilight Council, so you'll have faster Blink open to him. Two very different ways of playing. I love that Neeb's getting a shield battery down. That's necessary to provide a defense in the main.
Yeah, another really cool detail that I really appreciate from Stats is the targeting of the probes with that Adept. He always targeted the probes that were in one of those indentations so that they would be much more difficult to micro out. If you target the closer to the Nexus mineral patches, then they're a lot easier to just pull to the side. So good job from Stats. So it's going to continue to try and harass. Gets 2 additional probes with his first Oracle. Not amazing for Stats, right? It's kind of an even game, I would say.
Yeah, but the Oracle obviously still has value kind of going on from here. You're picking up information. Neeb, by the way, is just having none of this. He's like, oh, I'm going to have a faster Blink. I'm going to probably have more Stalkers than you. Let's take advantage of that. Puts a gateway down on the left side of the map, proxying that up. Okay. And Neeb is going to be the one to bring the fire here in game 1.
I like it. Do you like it, Wardy? I'm scared. I'm so scared, but
I'm scared, but I like it. I do like it. I think it's a good decision because think about it, right? The Oracle opening, the Stargate investment, the Oracle. These are all things that cost a lot. Oh, the Oracle sees it. That's so big for stats.
Unlucky. He wasn't even looking for it.
I know. The other thing I was just going to say is because stats is also going +1, right? That helps you further down the line, but it will not help him in the initial defense. Yeah, but now he knows it completely changes everything. And if I'm Neeb, I think you just take the third base. You get stats scared. You force a bit more defense out of him, right? The batteries will go down. You see the robos starting already. Just take the third base instead and try and take a more macro approach. It's not super bad that the gateway and the pylon on the left side will probably die. Yeah, it sucks, but it's not unplayable.
Yeah, and I was still hopeful, even if Neeb managed to commit or wanted to commit, the fact that stats open with an additional sentry, like he has like two sentries on the low ground, those really wouldn't help against Blinkstalkers. But the reason that I think that you don't anticipate something like this opener from Neeb in Blinkstalkers, especially if they are to be aggressive, is because of the layout of this map. It's so difficult to attack up that ramp. And the Blinkstalkers, of course, can bypass it, but then you've spent your Blink, right? So I like this decision as well. I think it is the more sensible decision from Neeb to take that third, as long as he can stay out on the map with his Blinkstalkers and kind of look to deny or at least slow down the mirror third from stats.
I am actually a little bit worried for Neeb because I think stats might just go with like an Immortal. The fact he's going to have +1 against no +1. I think there's an opening here for stats that he could take advantage of, so we'll see if he wants to do that. He is starting to move out on the map. It would have to be a prism behind this Immortal, but it's totally possible.
Yeah, I think that's more or less exactly what we're going to see. The charge is going to be extremely important for Neeb. If he can get to charge, then all of these units are going to be extremely weak against Zealots. The Stalkers do not fare well against Zealots. The Sentries obviously don't. Immortals not particularly good against them either. So Zealots with charge and these 3 gateways are going to be super important for Neeb. But stats looks like he's just gonna chill. He's gonna take his own third, be happy with clearing this proxy gate.
He's still taking the prism, right? So he will still have the option to go and be aggressive just to test the waters, right? See what's up. He's still got the Oracle as well. So if the Oracle goes one way, pulls a couple units out of position or something, and then you can dive in. It's actually very akin to what Stats did against Party in their earlier series today, where Stats was just able to get the jump. The army supplies were similar, but he just had +1 and his prism over the opponent, and that was a big deal. Like you said, I really do agree with the charge, but the problem is right now the Zealot count isn't there, the gateway count isn't ready, and Stats might just strike at the perfect moment, Cats. If he doesn't slow down and he goes right now, I think Stats has a really good opportunity.
All right, let's see what happens. This is a very strong position to take between those 2 bases as well, because it's going to force Neeb to come down the ramp on one of those sides. A lot of force fields already spent, and here's the blink over from Stats, who is looking extremely strong in this position. Like you said, he has that extra +1. Neeb is going to have to go up his own choke. And like you were mentioning, Wardy, the Zealots are nowhere to be found. The probes having to be pulled just to soak up a few shots from those Stalkers, but the Warp Prism, nicely tucked in, is going to be kind of shielded from anything that Neeb has to throw at it.
Yeah, I mean, how do you kill the Prism? That's the play, right? You jump on the Prism, you cut off reinforcements, but Stats, the way he moved his army, just said that will not be possible. Neeb is going to tap out the game, and that's essentially him tapping out of Katowice, Cats, because now it is pretty much impossible. I think it is impossible for him to advance.
Maybe it would be impossible for anyone else to advance, Wardy, but I am sure Neeb will find a way as the Thundershaft.
the Thundershaft shows up just when you expect it to, right? So maybe we did the math wrong. I would blame us on our math before we blame the fun. Yeah, I get it. I agree.
Maybe there's a forfeit or something like that, like one of the players has some wrist issues or something. But the Thundershaft, I still believe that we're going to see him in the next stage somehow. But it's certainly not going to be through his performance in this group. So, yeah, that is that is kind of the end of the American dream, right? A little bit sad, but still a lot on the line for Stats here, who is, I believe, not through. And if he wants to advance for sure, he needs to win this series. Otherwise, he's depending, I believe, on the other series as well.
Yes, and it's actually a really good point. I think it's very important still for Stats to come out on top of 2-0 even better, because map score is very important for him. He is 2-2, right? So other results can come into play. I mean, if Ragnarok beats Rogue, maybe Stats can even get first. That might be a possibility. Obviously, we're kind of thinking Rogue's going to beat Ragnarok, right? But ZVZ, things might happen. it's still important. Stats just wants to go through as clean as possible, right? And even for the second seed, right? Even if we forget about, finishing first, finishing second, yeah, you don't get a seed into the round of 8, but you get to avoid some players in the round of 12. And if you finish second, it's the difference between playing Serral or not, maybe. Don't get me wrong, there's no easy opponent in the round of 12 Katowice, but, I think there's still some preferences that certain players would say they have.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to avoid Dark, right? If you can, you definitely want to avoid, I suppose, Serral, if you can, even though both of them coming from the same group, you may only be able to avoid one, no matter what your performance is. If you were to draw the lack of drawing from that group, right? That was a crazy group. But yeah, we've seen a lot of really close calls. Yesterday's group was amazing. This group is proving to be as close as it gets with all of the players, just more or less, maybe except Ragnarok, kind of showing up and having their moments and showing their strength. We see Neeb a little bit resigned. I'm sure he knows the maths, and they're not in his favor.
It's rough, right? You got to play game 2, and obviously there's still money on the line and so on, right? There's still reason to play, but it's disheartening when getting out of the group is no longer a possibility. Cats, I'll let you take this one away.
All right, and in the bottom right-hand side, the American champion for Ting, he is Neeb.
I love the passion, mate. I like it a lot. In the top left-hand side, our Red Protoss player looking to advance out of the group right now. The Shield of Aya, his stats.
Touch power. I actually expected stats to show up in this group and just kind of destroy everyone. Rogue has been a great surprise. I mean, it sounds so silly because it's like Rogue is a great surprise, but it's a surprise that happens consistently, right? It's like, I mean, it's a big tournament. He's going to show up. And it's like, is he going to show up though? Because, he's been looking shaky the last 3 months, and all of a sudden he shows up in great form.
That's just Rogue, right? He actually shows up the most when he's not looked as good, right? It's almost like he feeds off the doubters. He feeds off the people who don't believe in him. He's like, right, this is it. I'm high level now. I'm ready to go. He does it every time. I mean, sometimes he comes out of a big win, and it was Katowice last year, right? He won, and then he just got knocked out of GSL in the first group stage. It was like, oh. And then everyone's like, well, Rogue, huh? And then he just comes back full force next season. He's very good at that.
Maybe that's Neeb's problem. He needs more doubters because he always has Fear Dragon in his corner at least, right? Like you know that Neeb can go 0-10 in the team league, and Fear Dragon's still gonna think that he's the favorite against anyone.
Oh my god. Katz, you're onto something, because then Trap got eliminated and he's got Gemini as his big supporter.
Yep.
He plays that they need more doubters.
The unwavering ones are,
I'm behind you a little bit here. Just to recap this game so far, everyone, it's not really that interesting, right? We're just seeing the first big decision now. It's 2 gates each. That's very standard for PvP when you're not on one of those kind of ramp up into the natural maps like Pillars of Gold or Oxide. The fact that we're seeing 2 Adepts versus a Stalker Sentry is the first real talking point here, so Stat's going to have a little bit more option to harass. Neeb more so looking like he'll probably take an expansion. Stats could even drop a Stargate before he expands here.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing about these adepts. It's that the gas cost is a lot lower, right? Compared to on the other side, there's been 150 gas spent. Here, there's only 50 gas spent. So there's 100 extra gas that Sats could choose to do something with, and he's actually going to invest it right into a sentry. Interestingly enough, so kind of a strange but cool play, defensive, looking to gather a lot of information as the game progresses.
Yeah, just another way of expanding, really, right? It's an expansion where you don't have a lot of power on the ground. So it's a little risky if your opponent comes at you with like 4 to 6 Stalkers because you only have sentries. The Adepts are on the map. They don't stand up for themselves. That was a last-minute block. He'll commit to it because he gets a probe out of it. So not bad at all for Stats.
Oh, no!
That's force field isn't how it's meant to be, Cats. That's going to need force fielding his own Stalkers in and letting the Adepts get away. Oh.
Yeah, that was really rough. I think that at least maybe he could have killed one of those Adepts. The idea was there, right? If you catch the Adepts with the force field, then fantastic. But yeah, not a good start here for Neeb. Not terrible either. It's not like he took any damage really. So did spend a little bit of energy, and that would have come in handy potentially for hallucinations, just in order to check what his opponent is capable of doing. So he'll have to work from the shadows for now.
Yep, both players just going to go for that Forge and Twilight Council, so the follow-up to everything here is looking very similar. This is horrible, though, for Neeb, letting Adepts in. I feel like they took a bad path going back like that. Maybe minimizes the damage they're going to do. I feel like if you just gone for the mineral line, you probably get 4 or 5. He gets 3, which is still good. I mean, the damage is still there, right? And Stats just taking little leads. Well, again, everything else is looking similar. They're both going to go blink. They're both going to go +1. So it's little worker advantages that can just give you the couple extra units and maybe open up some timings further down the line.
Yes, indeed. And it's going to be, while they are both doing the same thing, it's going to be Stats that has the better information, just on the back of Neeb spending so much energy on those force fields defensively. And Stats opening with that double sentry, he's going to be able to hallucinate Phoenix and know exactly what Neeb is doing. And in knowing exactly what Neeb is doing and knowing that he is mirrored, he can probably look to take some, say, economic advantages, or look to punish if Neeb is to overextend here and take his third too fast.
Yep, definitely some options. I think Stats just going to take the third as well. We really are watching a mirrored game at the moment. Just a faster robo. So yeah, that's the only real difference once again. Just Stats, just the little things, right? He's been able to afford the robo a little sooner. And again, maybe that creates some opportunity for him further down the line. The options are definitely there.
Yes, indeed. So let's see what happens here. It looks like both players are exactly mirrored, and both players are... I mean, this is the two Protoss players that are the most defensive and the most standard Protoss players probably in the entire circuit, right? In the entire scene, I would say. So,
yes.
Yeah, this is pretty much the epitome of what you might expect from them. It's just complete mirrors and them both being comfortable to taking it to the late game. So I'm hoping for an awesome finale to it.
I actually, when we found out we were going to cast Stats versus Neeb, I kind of thought, man, this could be a long one. Obviously, game 1 was not that, but you go into Romantis side, and don't get me wrong, you can have these games, they end at a moment's notice. If someone gets an attack, they snipe the prism, reinforcements are cut off, it can be a game changer. But with the way that these two like to play, we might start seeing disruptors, then they might not attack into each other for a while. That opens the door to carriers, and before you know it, we're 35, 40 minutes deep on Romantis side in PvP. It's a real possibility with these two.
Oh yeah, Dark Templars. I mean, every unit can come into play in PvP. Every unit pretty much has a place in the matchup, so that is super exciting. It's going to be about those larger switches when the armies are starting to shape up. The Archons are going to be, you know, the more Zealots there are, the more Archons you want. And then the Air transitions are likely to be found as well. Templar Archives coming up for Neeb a little bit faster than Stats, so we are looking to go into that Zealot phase, right, as Stats starts his charge as well.
Yeah, it's still the same idea across the board, just expecting charge out of Neeb too. And, you know, you go into Archons, you need those. They're tanky, they're the splash damage that goes a long way. Neeb also going to go into a slightly faster fourth base, right? Again, it's just moments here, like a few seconds here or there on either bit, you know, bits and pieces. Wouldn't say anything really too influential. I like that Stats is moving around the bottom side, take a bit of map control. Hey, you find a pylon, right? May as well get something done if you can. There's not really ever any danger to having these stalkers on the map. The biggest danger is you're not in position to defend and attack back at home, but he definitely seems knowledgeable enough to know that Neeb was not moving out. So a pretty risk-free move, and yeah, you get a pylon. Now you rotate around, the fourth base is open. Not thinking he's going to get a council on the fourth, but you might be able to get the pylon. It's going to get a probe, yeah, pylon, and then you just get out again. So a couple of kills that add up, doesn't even get the pylon. Wow.
Yeah, I would have thought he goes for it, but maybe he's scared of the potential for Neeb to blink with more stalkers than he has. And this is a big warping from Stats. This is a very open position at the fourth as well. So if Stats thinks that he has more army than Neeb, there's no better position to take a fight in.
Maybe he just sees like, oh, you're taking a faster fourth than me, and just the little things. He has +2 a little bit quicker, charge a bit faster. If he hits with +2 in charge while Neeb isn't ready, Neeb could just die here. Like, it's very possible. So let's see what happens. Also, let's have a look at that fourth base. It is just that one pylon, right? It's low HP, so if you get rid of that, you stop warpins into the fight from Neeb. There are absolutely some problems here.
Yeah, I love that he uses the time to wait for that upgrade and for the charge by breaking those rocks, making the space even more open. And here comes Stats from a single angle, but he has a lot. He has a ton, in fact, and there's a warping from Neeb, but the pylon will get taken down, and that's it.
Yeah, right, I mean, like I say, it's just that one